Hello everybody and welcome to this video tutorial on how to create a sequenced piece of Indonesian gamelan music. My name is Mr. Lodge. This video is intended for students at Linghall School, but feel free to use it wherever you are. We're going to be using Bandlab for this particular tutorial. So before we get started, there are just a couple of things that we need to make sure that we have. The first thing is headphones, obviously, and you probably wouldn't be able to hear this if you didn't have headphones. The second thing we need over here is our MIDI instrument. You need to make sure you're using a MIDI keyboard, that it is plugged in and working, that the USB is running out the back. You will normally know if your keyboard is on because you will have some kind of light on it. Now, these smaller keyboards, these Korgs, they don't have a power connection, so they should just go on. Some of the bigger ones that we have at Linghall have a little switch around the back. So if your MIDI keyboard isn't on and it's plugged in, it's probably because you haven't switched it on at the back. We also need a couple of other resources, and I have a hard copy of these resources with me. The first of these is my walkthrough sheet here. You should probably have one of those. This video tutorial covers all of that kind of stuff, but you might want that to hand. The second thing you might need is your resource sheet. Now, I have a copy of that resource sheet here, so I'll be referring to it digitally. Here it is. Here's what we are using. Here is our gamelan resource. You may want to have a version visually on your computer as well, or a hard copy. It's up to you. So you need to make sure you have all of those things before you start. I am not going to show you in this video how to create a Bandlab account. We do have one of those tutorial videos if you need to do that, but I am under the estimation that most people watching this will already have some kind of Bandlab account. So we have got to a point where I've created my account. I've gone to create new project in the top right, and this is where I am at right here. And you'll see that I have a series of tracks that I can choose from, and for the purposes of our Indonesian gamelan, we are going to be focusing here on instruments. So I'm going to click on instruments, and that is going to bring up this looking thing here. A few things to talk about before we start recording anything, and that is first of all that we have chosen a suitable instrument for our track. Now, gamelan music, if you remember, gamelan refers to instruments that are percussion, instruments that you hit. And we don't have perfect gamelan instruments here, but we can pick a few things over here in percussion that we think might work. And just to test, we can press this little button here, and that gives us an example of what we're going to listen to. So things like glockenspiel, kalimba, and bells will do absolutely fine. I am going to go with, for this one, let's go with a glockenspiel. So I'm going to click on that. All being well, I can now play on my MIDI keyboard, and it's got a sound coming through. Now, right now, I can't see quite what I'm playing here. There we go. Just got to move my octave key up a little bit, and you can see now on my keyboard there that I am playing what I want to be playing. Perfect. So I've set up my instrument. Now, I'm going to record some different lines, but there's one other really important thing that I need to do first before I start playing. It is really important in all music, but in gamelan music especially, that we are playing in time. At Linghall School, we use 2 T's an awful lot in our performance. One of those words is technique, which we'll talk about in a second. The other one is timing. I need to make sure that I'm playing the correct length of notes in time, or else when I start putting everything together, it's going to sound like a massive mess. So how can I make sure that I'm in time? What I need is a little tool called the metronome tool. The metronome's over here. You click it, it's on, it's blue, we are good to go. Now, if I start recording now, you will hear that if I press the record button, I'm going to get quite a quick metronome. That is probably going to be a bit too quick for me when I'm recording this. And if you've not played much of this gamelan music before, it's going to be a bit too quick for you as well. So I'm going to change the tempo of my gamelan track by using the BPM marker here. I'm going to click on this. I'm going to bring it down to around about, let's go with 70. Let's go with 70. That's a nice number. 71 doesn't overly matter too much. Let's go with 70. If I press record now, I've got... That's a bit more comfortable. Now, I can actually take it even slower, and I encourage you to, if you are trying to play some of the tougher lines in your gamelan piece, and you are struggling to play it, I would take your tempo marking down, play it at a speed you are comfortable at, because you can always, once you've recorded, take that tempo marking back up. So my MIDI keyboard here is ready to go. I've got my instrument set up, and I've set my metronome. I'm ready to go. I just want to check that I've got a 1 bar count in, which I've already checked. And a 1 bar count in means that when I press record, rather than just recording straight away, it gives me 4 clicks. That's really helpful because that helps me keep in time and prepares me to play rather than getting me to jump in straight away. So here's my music, and you can see in our resource sheet at Linghall, we've got 6 parts. Part 1 is the melody, part 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. They are of differing levels of difficulty. And I know it sounds a little bit confusing, but I'm actually going to start with part 2 because I think part 2 is the simplest, because with part 2, I've only got 2 notes to worry about. They are the notes A and C in the rhythm of A, C, C, A, C, C, A, C, C. Now I play A, C, C 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 times, and then I end with a C. My C at the end here that you can see me circling lasts for 4 beats. These things here are called eighth notes. They last for half a beat. And then I've got this one here, which is a quarter beat. So again, the rhythm is going to be A, C, C, A, C, C, A, C, C, and so on and so on. So that's what I'm going to be playing. I've got my keyboard here. It's going to be slightly awkward for me in my setup to play this properly, but I'm going to try. Thinking about the other T word, which is technique, you will notice that when I play, I'm going to be using just one hand. I'm not going to be using 2 hands to play the 2 different bits, nor am I going to just be using 1 index finger. Those are both examples of poor technique. What I want to be doing is using my right hand, 2 different fingers, and I'm going to record. So let's have a go at recording our first part, which is part 2 of the gamelan piece. Here we go. 3, 4. A, C, C, A, C, C. And I'm using my click to keep me in time. Right at the end, I've got to C for 4 beats. Happy with that? That sounded good. And there it is there. It comes up automatically. If I listen to it back, I know I'm in time because of my click track. I know I've used good technique. I know I've played the notes correctly. So I'm happy with that. I have done part 2 of my gamelan piece there. So let's go on to another part. Let's try part 3. And if we want to try and do another part, there's a little trick that we can do. We're going to add track. We're going to add a new virtual instrument. Again, we're going to find a percussion sound. Let's go for something different this time. Let's go for a bell sound. Why not? Good, happy with that. Good. I'm actually just going to switch the octaves very quickly. That might be a bit better. The reason that I was playing so high is because I had the octave button set on octave 5 here. If you think it's sounding too high on your keyboard, that might be why. So just try changing this button down a little bit. The lower the number is next to octave, the lower you're going to be playing on your keyboard. So that sounds a little bit better. Now, if I start recording something now, you will notice that as I try and record, I've already got this instrument playing at the same time. And that can be a little bit distracting. So what I'm going to do is going to do 2 things. First of all, I'm going to rename this track so I know what's what. I'm going to call this part 2, so I'm aware on my resource sheet where I am. The second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click this button here, which is the button M for mute. And there's 2 things you can do. You can either press M for mute, which is going to stop this part from playing, or on the instrument I'm about to play, I can press S for solo, and that just solos this particular track. Now this track is part 3. But for now, I'm going to mute this part. So this time when I record, you're not going to hear this. Let's have a quick look at part 3. I'm going to get this a bit bigger so you can see it. Part 3, we have got a C, E, A, C, E, A, C. So we've got C, E. And again, how many times I'm doing that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I'm going to finish on an A for 4 beats at the end. So the rhythm is slightly different, but requires that kind of same attention to detail, making sure we are in time. So I've muted that track. I'm going to record part 3. Here we go. last note, 2, 3, 4. Now, the keen amongst you would have noticed that for that one, I actually used my left hand rather than my right hand. It doesn't matter too much, but you'll notice again that I use the technique of not just using one finger, not using two hands. I will try and remember, if I can, to use my right hand, although to be honest with my setup at the moment, that's going to be quite difficult. So I've got two parts recorded. Let's put them together by taking M off and see how it sounds. Now, we have one issue here, you might have noticed, and that is at the start of this track, it hasn't picked up that first note that I did. Now, there's two things I can do here. I can either record the track straight away, or there's another little trick that I can do if you want to have a go at doing it this way. You don't have to, you don't need to do it. We're doing year 7s doing this task, but if I double click this, it opens up all my lovely notes here. And that first note that I had was, if I remember rightly, a C. So what I can do is, if I'm able to move it this way, yeah, here we go. I can use the pencil tool to input a C note rather than playing it. Watch this. Click a C in. There you go. I've cheated a little bit. I'd rather use the keyboards, but you can use the pencil tool to input any notes that you may have missed. So let's go back to this. Let's turn our solo off. Let's have a listen to them both. Good. Happy, happy, happy. Done parts 2 and part 3. Let's try another part. Virtual instrument, same thing as before. If I'm on this thing here and I want to go back to my instrument, you'll see in the bottom left I have a button to press here, which is the instrument, which I can click. Gives me my instrument choice again. So percussion, let's go with a kalimba this time. Why not? Good. Happy with that. So we've done part 2 and 3. I know I'm doing it in a weird order. It's all good, really, what order you do it in. I'm just going for the easier ones first. Remember, if I'm recording this, I want to not hear these tracks at the same time. I can mute them both, but on this occasion, I'm actually going to solo this track, which hopefully means that when I press the recording button, I don't hear anything else, which is what I want. It helps me to concentrate. So let's do part 1. Now, part 1 is slightly trickier in that I've got more notes that I need to worry about. Now, all of these notes are worth one beat. These are quarter notes, so every beat is going to be A, E, D, A, C, A, E, C. If you're a part of my lessons, if I've taught you, then you'll notice probably I've said it at least 5 or 6 times in my lessons that the thing you have to be really careful for in this part is the fact that you have got some notes in slightly different places. For example, this E here has got a little blob right at the top of my stave, whereas this E here doesn't. And that means that we are playing different E's on our keyboard. Main rule you need to remember is look at if the next note is higher or lower than your first note to know what direction you're going on the keyboard. For example, my first note's in A, and I can see on my sheet here that the next note is higher on my stave. So the E is going to be this one. However, when I get C, A to this E, I can see that this E is lower than this A. So I'm actually going to go down to it. So we just have a little practice. Oh, I was going to say I was going to use my right hand, wasn't I? So A, up to E, D, A, C, A, down to E, C. And then we do that again. And I finish on a C. Now, my timing wasn't very good there because I didn't have the click on. The main thing we need to remember on this particular occasion is that each beat is worth one note because it is a quarter note. So let's bring Bandlab back up. There it is. Got my instrument set up, got these 2 parts here muted, got my click track on. Let's give it a go. 1, 2, 3. Here we go. We've got A, E, D, A, C, A, down to E. Okay, now if I'm being honest, that wasn't my best recording. I could do it again, or I could cheat a little bit. Let's have a little listen. Little mistake Mr. Lodge made right there. It happens. It's absolutely fine. I can do it again. Or again, I can show you little techniques to show you how to make it better as well. You can see on Bandlab, they've got that little horrible dodgy bit, which I don't want. So I'm going to isolate the note that I didn't want. I'm going to delete it as if it never happened. You didn't see a mistake. I didn't see a mistake. However, I also made a mistake there because I've got an A, E. The next note here, which is currently a C, should have been a D. Again, I'm going to cheat. I'm going to take that note. I'm going to move it up to a D. Again, you never saw anything. So I've just used some basic editing skills to iron out some of those little mistakes that I've made. There we go. Let's take solo off. Let's have a listen. Yeah, happy with that. Happy with that. Let's label this part 1. And just to keep things nice and neat, I can change the order of my parts around so it looks nice and neat. I can even do things if I want to, like change the color, change the names, all that kind of stuff you have control over in Bandlab. But I want to crack on. I've got 3 more parts to do. These are going to get a little bit more difficult. Well, I say more difficult. The next part that I'm going to do is actually I'm going to jump to part 6. And the reason I'm going to jump to part 6 is because it's a little bit easier. Oh no, I made a mistake there. If you make a mistake like that and something disappears, do not worry too much. There is a simple button that you can do to undo. And that is if I press Control and Z at the same time, my work reappears. So do not worry. Control Z is your friend. If you make a mistake, it means undo. I'm in the track down here. Instrument. Now, part 6, just before I choose my instrument, part 6 is the bass part down here. So therefore, I'm going to see if I can find a nice bass instrument. You can see that the little mark in front of the start of my music here looks different to the others. These things are called treble clefs. Treble clef is French for high key. It means you're going to be playing higher on your keyboard. This is the bass clefs, which means we want to be playing it lower. So I'm going to play this part a little bit lower. Now, each of these notes are called whole notes. These are worth 4, except for this funky one here, because this is a whole note, which is worth 4 beats. But I also have this tie here, which connects these 2 notes together. So this F isn't actually going to be worth 4. It's going to be worth 8. Remember that. All important stuff. So I want to find a sound which is slightly more appropriate for bass, but still percussion. So let's see what we can find. What sounds good. Not that. We could try this. Now, do you know what? Yeah, why not? Let's use it. Let's use a vibraphone. Happy with a vibraphone. And remember, I want to be playing this low. So what I'm going to do with I'm going to change the octave down a little bit. So it's going to be slightly lower. Okay? All I did is change that. And I've made it slightly lower. So same thing as ever. I'm going to solo this track. We know what the notes are. We've got an A, a C, and an F. The A and the C last for 4 beats. The F lasts for 8. Let's give it a go. Hold the notes down. Switch to the right hand. 2, 3, 4, C, 2, 3, 4, F, 2. Hold it down. 5, 6, 7. Then I finish on an A. 2, 3, 4. There's my music there. Again, keep your music in front of you. It'll be helpful for you to have both your music and your tutorial video just to give you the best possible chance. Happy with that. Not going to listen to it right now. I'm going to change the name to part 6. And I am going to start playing some slightly more tricky parts now. Let's go for part 5 next. Everything as usual. Part 5. Oh, should we go for a piano for this one? Maybe. Oh, why is it not making a sound for me? Hang on a second. For some odd reason, this has just stopped playing. So let's just see if I can work out what the issue is for a few seconds. Everything should be plugged in. I'm going to just pause the video super quick just to see if I can fix this particular problem. I worked out what the problem is. It was just me being silly. You probably noticed and was shouting at your screen what I did wrong. The main issue was I had solo still on here in part 6. Turn that off and everything's fine. There you go. I'm still learning as well. It's all good. It's all good. So turn solo off. Going to turn it on for part 5. Now part 5 is only trickier because we've got on this occasion a few notes happening at the same time. You can see that I've got, rather than notes individually, notes that are clumped together. Each of these notes are eighth notes, which means they last for half a beat. So my kind of rhythm is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now, I actually don't love the fact that I've got a little bit of a... That's because of the instrument that I've chosen. So I'm going to change this. Let's change it to marimba. There we go. There we go. So let's have a look at that again. So each of these notes are half a beat. And at the end, again, I've got a C and an A. Now, I'm worried that when I press that, I actually kind of like it, but it's giving me a strange little sort of reverb effect I don't necessarily want. Is something on that's making that happen? I'm not entirely sure. You might not have it on yours. It's not the end of the world, but just out of interest, I'm going to delete this, add another one in. I'm still doing it. Did I press something? I've got the arpeggiator on my keyboard. There we go. My fault. Again, still learning. All good. If it's doing it to you, that's the reason why. Best way to teach is to make lots of mistakes and show you how I am making them, as if I'm doing this on purpose. Anyway, let's pick our instruments, which I think was bells. Let's go with it. Let's go with it. Again, I'm just going to change this up so you can see the notes they're playing. I'm going to change the octave down a little bit. That's better. So, got the notes here, playing notes at the same time, still using one hand, using different fingers. Okay, so let's give it a go. Part 6, solo it. Start from the beginning. Here we go. Four. Beautiful. There you go. There's all my notes there. Now, you might have noticed that when I was playing that, I was slightly ahead of the beat at points. Again, little tricky thing that you can do should you want to, just to adjust your timing. It's called the Quantize feature. You don't need to know about it until year 9 or year 10, but it is super helpful. If I click a note and then press Control A, it grabs all the notes. Watch the notes really carefully when I press Quantize. Can you see it? Just shifted them a little bit. I don't know if you saw that. I'm going to press Control Z so you can see it again. Quantize, shift. And that means that all of the notes just shift to the nearest time grid, and hopefully we'll keep it nicely in time, because at points there, I was slightly off the time. That is part 5. So I'm going to swap that round. I'm going to learn from my previous mistakes and turn the solo feature off, which just gives me one more part to play. So let's add our final track. Let's call it part 4, and actually, because I want to, I'm going to make this part a piano part. Keep it all looking neat. There you go. I've got my order of my 6 parts here. Make sure you solo it. Now, part 4 is for those amongst you who are feeling particularly brave, because we've got lots of notes here. These notes are called 16th notes. They are quick. A whole note is worth 1 beat. A half note is worth, an eighth note is worth half a beat. And a 16th note is worth a quarter of the beat. So the tempo I'm going at here, let's go down here. It's going to be really hard. I'm going to actually use my left hand for this one because I'm not going to be able to speak and play at the same time. Oh, I see I'm making mistakes all over the place here. That's the kind of speed that we are going for. Again, notice that I've got lots of E's, but in this particular point here, I've got an E which is low on my stave and an E which is high. They are not in the same place. This is my E here, and this is my E here. They are the same, but they are an octave apart. Really important to remember that. So, have a little look at this, have a practice of this. I am a trained music teacher, and I'm still very likely to get this wrong. So let's see. Let's give it a go. Let's give it a go. Let's give it a go. And then hopefully we'll have all 6 parts ready to go. So soloed it, yes. Part 4, yes. Got the music in front of me. 16th notes, it's going to go quickly. Let's just see what happens. There you go. I smashed it. But then I made loads of mistakes in this recording, so I'm not going to brag too much. Okay, again, I was slightly off the beat with this one. So what I'm going to do again is I'm going to do that whole Control A thing and quantize that I showed you before. It's just a helpful little tool just to keep you in time. So let's just scroll up and make sure I've got all of the notes here. Control A, quantize. I'm just going to have a little listen to that back. That's good enough. You might want to take it super slow on that one, or you might want to. Another thing you can do is just record it once and then loop it. The way you do that is using this loop tool here and then dragging out. You see, if I do that, it reloops the track. So what you can do is just record yourself playing. I'll show you just for an example. I could do that and loop it. It's a bit more complicated, though, doing things that way. It's better to see if you can try and practice doing the whole thing. So I've got my 6 parts. Let's see how it all sounds together, and let's see if we are happy with it. That sounds gamelan-y to me, just making up a whole brand new word there. You might find that some of your instruments are a bit more dominant than others. You can change the volume over here. So if I change the gain, changing the decibels here, if I wanted part 1 to be a bit louder, that'll bring that through a bit more. If I wanted to bring it down a bit. That's your choice. But what we have there is we've got a lovely sequenced gamelan piece with 6 different parts. Now, with my students, I did actually put a drum part underneath this as well because I felt like I wanted to. Now, they don't do that in Indonesia, but you can do that if you so desire. Always make sure, and I should have told you this earlier on, that as you play, you save your work. You can change the name up here. Save it here. Really, if I was being smart, I would have saved it as soon as I'd recorded one thing. Because if I make a mistake and I don't save it, then your work is lost. So I got lucky there. You shouldn't do the same thing as me. I'll try and remind you that in my lessons. But there we go. Fully sequenced piece of music. Everything that you need to know is here. You will have your teacher and your resource sheets with you. But that is a really nicely pieced sequence, a piece of sequenced work there. So I hope you enjoyed this video. And I'll be making more videos for other pieces that you're doing. But for now, I will leave it there. See you later.